Where are the best places to go to eat afterwards?
I would have said until recently a Tooties, but it closed, which is right around the Lincoln Drive area.
Uh,
And I've seen Feinberg there. I've met him for pizza once, or I've seen his wife. And now what I like to say is Wissahickon Brewing Company, which you can get a really good beer, and they bring in food trucks, which are always different most days. So the food is actually quite good, and you can get a good beer there. And that is mile and a half from the Lincoln Drive areas.
oh wow.
And then you can always literally from Lincoln Drive walk to Manayunk, and you've got all the Manayunk places to go. I think Wissahickon Brewery is probably the most fun place to go to get a good beer. And then if you're further up in the park, closer to Chestnut Hill, there's Chestnut Hill Brewing Company, which is in the Chestnut Hill Farmers Market, where you have like multiple different, there's like really good sushi, there's really good pizza, there's bakery, there's this Korean Mexican fusion, which is weird but really delicious food. So I always try to get to Chestnut Hill Farmers Market, where you can have the Chestnut Hill Brewing Company and multiple different kinds of food. And then Wissahickon Brewing Company, which will have a different truck there most nights of the week, so a differing menu. And both places have good beer.
What else besides food would you tell someone who's visiting the area? Is there anything else that people need to know?
Um, it's a great place for beginners, intermediate climbers. There's not a lot of hard stuff in the park. So like the super strong guys may not find it all that exciting, but it's great for training. The schist is highly featured. So one of the reasons there's not anything too hard is that schist has lots of features on it. So there's always a hold to grab in most areas. But what that does is we always used the park as training areas. So when I was training for Laura, I would go down to the Lincoln Drive area, Danger Dam, which is really, really steep. And I'd make, there were some V6s there, and then I could link it to a V4, and then I could link that to a V3. So I'd climb V3 into a V4, finish on a V6. And then eventually I had to grade them in like a 513 because there's one problem that is 70 moves back and forth, which is hard to call that a boulder problem. It's a traverse and then a traverse back. So it's really good for training, for endurance. And then you just eliminate holds. We literally used it as a moon board. Matt Snyder and I would be down there and don't use that. These feet are off. We have hundreds of boulder problems. He's got them all logged in a journal with the name. He wanted me to put them in the app, but it was like impossible. I'd literally have to put like tape on the holds. Yeah. I didn't know how to put it in the app. That foot's off. That foot's off. You have to use that hand. That you have. And we used it like a moon board to get strong. So that's one of the fun things about the boulder problems. That's kind of one of the ethics of the area. So I would say if you get into the park, do that. Find a boulder and set your own problems on it. Video it, put it online, and see if other people can repeat it. So I'm actually trying to do that. I have a Wissicon bouldering YouTube channel where I'm beginning to build it where Matt Snyder and we want to try to put some of our contrived problems up so people can repeat them, but it doesn't make sense to do it on the app. So we're going to do it on a YouTube channel so people can climb some of our many contrived problems that we've developed over the years. So you'll see that update on the next app. We may even be able to link it right into the app. So you can just click and it'll take you to YouTube and you can watch us doing a weird contrived boulder problem.
Nice. That sounds really cool. I'll definitely be out there trying them.
It's like an outdoor moon board. You can use it as, it's really good for training. And it's very steep. Everything in the park is steep except for one area called the Funky Slab, which is a slab. If you want like steep climbing, with easy top outs and great landings and easy access. Wissickon's a great place to start.
What climb has the craziest story behind it?
So there was one problem. It's kind of changed because a big hold broke on it. We called it the knee bar Lotta. That's down on the Wissahickon. It's in the Torque area on the Lincoln Drive Trail. I was working it. I was like this close to getting it in my second year of medical school. And there were two guys that climbed with me for like 1 year. They were seniors at what is now Philadelphia University. It's now Jefferson University. It was Philadelphia University. It used to be called Textiles back 20 years ago, Philadelphia College of Textiles. They were seniors, and I'm in a library studying for like a very big test I had the next day for medical school. And they call me and they say, Brandon is about to send your project. So I go to I was at PCOM studying in their library. So I was literally like 2 miles from where they were standing. And I'm like, ah. So I say to my study partner, Kevin, I got to get down there. And he's like, you're a medical student. You're like, we have a big test tomorrow. You can't just like abandon. And so I was really torn. And eventually my partner, Kevin, gave me permission. He's like, if you want to go, you can go. I guess it's up to you. He gave me permission to leave, got in the car. I ran over there. They hadn't sent it yet. And it was freezing cold. My hands were all numb. And I got the send.
Rich, I understand you're also a Ninja Warrior celebrity. How was that experience, and did it help your climbing?
Celebrity is a very generous term. I'd made it to Vegas twice, which was cool, but it was 15 minutes of fame. It was very fun. Very much like the climbing community, I found the ninja community is extremely uncompetitive, and you make friends very quickly. You share training ideas very quickly. Everybody is giving beta on when you're on the set and everybody's watching each other do it. Everybody's trying to help each other get through. Don't do it that way. Do you see what that person did wrong? Don't do that. When it's your time to run, do it this way. Everybody's helping each other. So it's like a beta session and a bouldering session. So that was really fun. I made a lot of friends. And yeah, I'm glad that I did. I got on TV for my kids. That was my goal.
Nice. I'm sure they love that.
Your dad hero. And I would say it did help my climbing. I began training differently. I became a much more powerful climber. I started doing circuit workouts. So the reason I did Ninja Warrior is because my climbing partner wanted to do it, and he talked me into applying so we could train together, and then he never actually applied. And then I got on the show. So he was like a V10 climber, big guy from the South, from North Carolina. And he was also a Russian kettlebell instructor. So this guy had like a lot, and it's certified. So he like had a lot of knowledge about how to train. And since he screwed me and never applied, he told me he would train me once I got on the show. And so he basically took me through Tabatas type workouts, like circuit type of workouts to get me strong. He got me campusing. I never really campused that much, and he got me into campusing. So it made me a much more powerful climber, and I started incorporating campusing into workouts, and I think I began to train smarter. But at the same time, since Ninja Warrior, I probably have neglected my slab and face climbing techniques. If you've ever seen me at the gym, I'm usually on the very steep lead wall or on the 60-degree. I just don't get on the slab stuff very much. So in some ways, it made my climbing worse as an all-arounder, but I've become much more powerful on steep overhangs.
Nice. That's good. That's a good trade-off.
Yeah. It's more fun.
Power is much harder to get.
Yeah.
What do you do for a living, Rich?
I'm an emergency doctor. Went to medical school at Temple. I trained in emergency at Drexel. So I've been like Philly doc, and I've practiced in community hospitals around Philadelphia, Chestnut Hill, Pottstown, Delaware County Hospital, and now I'm at Bryn Mawr Hospital doing emergency medicine and on the front lines of this virus.
You want to tell us a little bit about that? What it's been like to completely reorganize the way you interact with your patients?
I would say we are not overrun in the emergency department. Our volumes are actually lower. I went from seeing 25 to 30 patients in a shift to about 10 patients in a shift because people without emergencies are staying away. In the emergency department, you can see a lot of things that aren't necessarily emergencies, which is nice because with a COVID patient, when you see them, it just takes a lot more time and having to run from room to room. It's nice to actually see just a few patients an hour. Every patient that is suspected of having the virus, you've got to gown up and put on all this protective gear. And then coming out of the room, you've got to take it off in a way that you don't infect yourself or others and dispose of it. So seeing a patient, and then you want to try to minimize your time going back into a room. So you want to go in once, and that's kind of it. And maybe once at the end, you don't want to have to forget something. So when you go in, you don't want to forget to have done or collected any information or have done anything for the patient. So you just got to do all of your checklists. A lot of the therapies that we would use for someone with respiratory distress, we can't use because they aerosolize oral secretions, which then would put all the healthcare workers at risk for getting the virus, even more risk. You're kind of trying to practice medicine with someone who has a respiratory illness with one hand tied behind your back because you can't use half of the therapies that you typically would, things like nebulizers and BiPAP masks, respiratory masks to support breathing, which would be your mainstay of treatment. Initially, we were told we were not allowed to use them. And in recent weeks, things are constantly changing on what's the best way to treat this. And currently, we are beginning to use some of those modalities again. We're just to be extremely protective. So it's been not as busy, but it's been a little bit more stressful because we're learning and it's changing constantly.
Rich, I want to really thank you for your time. This has been super interesting.
You've got a personal guidebook right here, so we'll go out together sometime.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, man.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Bye.